have to be recorded, but...
Well, I'll just record for my own writing purposes.
That is okay.
Okay, why are we here?
Why are we here? Start with an easy one, huh?
Always, Peter, always.
On one level, we're here because ICE's activity in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, has been so much more intense and violent than even Chicago and other places before. It is so amped up and focused, and the numbers of agents here are hard for people to imagine without seeing it on the ground. We are calling people in to witness what is happening here and to act in solidarity with the people of Minnesota as we have our citywide shutdown tomorrow and our ICE out protests and actions. More broadly, we are also aware that Minnesota is a bellwether for what's going to happen next. We are putting up, because of the lessons we've learned from people in Chicago, people in Portland, people in DC, we have been prepared for this struggle, and people are showing up for it, and that is one of the reasons why the administration is honing down on us. What happens here will impact what happens with ICE and across the rest of the country. If ICE gets away with it here, it will continue to spread and grow. If we can shut it down, and if we are a marker to call the rest of the nation in to help shut it down, things can start to change. So whether people are taking lessons to go back and prepare their own communities, or we're thinking about how this is a moment for us to collectively change things, this is where the whole nation needs to be involved. It can't just be a Minnesota thing.
Thank you. What are we doing here?
What are we doing here? We are making space for other people. Here, let's scoot over here out of the way.
Getting out of the way. And getting in the way.
Yes. What are we doing? We've called people in for 2 days of witness and learning and action and solidarity. So there will be times in which we want people to hear the stories of those who have been working on this for weeks, for a month and a half now, almost 2 months. Hear the stories of both the harm and the horror, but also the stories of the resilience and the power and the community and organizing that has come together around that. We want as many people as possible to be able to see on the ground and witness some level of what it looks like, what's happening, and see it. There will be times in the afternoon where people will learn, where we're asking, okay, great, what do you want to take back to your communities to help prepare? Or to help think about how are you going to show up tomorrow? How are you going to take action with us? What do you want to do to prepare? And then tomorrow is all about taking action together. So we release people to go get involved in the work that Isaiah is doing. Unidos, the organizers of the whole citywide shutdown, the 23rd tomorrow. And we want to empower people to show up alongside us. Yeah.
Thank you. And what are the values in which we're doing this work?
There should be I'm sure there's a stronger bullet point list of what that looks like.
For you.
Yeah. For me, it's rooted in liberation and solidarity. One of the reasons that March itself wanted to take a lead in organizing this is wanting to particularly call in clergy of various faith traditions who have this orientation towards justice, this orientation towards liberation, and doing it from a pro-queer, pro-community, pro-justice, pro-liberation posture in the way people are showing up. And for me, that's a lot of where it is. Yeah, it's not just about how do we get things back to the way they were, but it's about how in this moment are we reimagining community, are we reimagining the society, and it's rooted. At least for me, it's rooted in abolition, it's rooted in liberation, and it's rooted in the value and dignity of everybody.
Thank you. You've pretty much already answered this question, but what does it mean to love our neighbors as ourselves in a time of Magified Christianity, Trump administration, ICE terrorism?
In this moment, loving our neighbor as ourselves means recognizing that it's not just about our neighbor. It is about ourselves also. This isn't just, we're going to go help these people. What is happening here is happening to all of us. Some people are targeted right now. Our black and brown immigrant neighbors especially are the most targeted right now. But we are all harmed by this, and many other people will be targeted in the future if this continues. Many other people are already being harmed. Even more than just how do we love our neighbor. This is about how do we love all of us in the community that we have. This is a sense of collective liberation, collective care. And that does mean when we see our neighbors, when we see the parents at our kids' schools, when we see the kids at our kids' schools themselves being picked up by ICE, we can't just sit back and wait and hope it goes away. We can't just think that we are too busy and someone else will take care of it. We need to stand alongside them. We need to care for them. We need to put ourselves on the line so that our whole community is safe.
Thank you. And for people who think that the response is too extreme or that it's too challenging, what do you have to say to those folks?
The response is too extreme or too challenging. If they think for folks who think the response is too extreme or too challenging, I think they are forgetting the history of Christianity. I think they are forgetting the history of America, where collectively, both in our theological tradition and our national tradition, we have a history of standing up to and resisting authoritarian power, violent, oppressive power from above. Both telling stories of the world as it can be and figuring out how do we live into that, and striving for liberty, for the dignity, for the well-being of everybody. And this is a moment in which that oppressive force is being focused so heavily in our communities, so blatantly, so violently, so illegally, that if we can't recognize that and take a stand against it in this moment, then I don't know when we ever will.
Thank you. Last question. What's giving you joy, hope, maybe even some defiant mirth in this moment?
Joy and hope is how many people have come to this gathering. We expected 200, and we had to cut off registration because we had 3 times that. I have been delighted and so encouraged at the massive outpouring of support and action in community care across Minneapolis. The way that so many people, many of whom have never taken action before, are getting out on the streets, are caring for their neighbors. And so much of what is happening here, the vast majority of what's happening here is not protest. There are people doing community defense. There are people deeply committed to nonviolence, whether in principle or in practice, who are putting themselves on the line. And there are many more alongside them and behind them who are thinking about how do we make sure kids get to school safely? How are we delivering food to people who are afraid to go out of their house? How are we helping to support, keep people in their houses when it's not safe for them to go to work anymore? So this growing massive infrastructure of not just the resistance we see on the news, but also just literally how do we love our neighbor because they need to feed themselves, because they are terrified to go outside.
Thank you. And if I may, one more question. A lot of us are quite unfamiliar with nonviolence. Maybe we've heard that word. Mm-hmm. Maybe we have some assumptions about what it may be. But there's a striking ignorance about nonviolence in our society today. What is nonviolence for you?
Nonviolence for me is about actively choosing to engage in conflict, to lean into it and face it, acknowledge that it is real, acknowledge that there is a power imbalance, acknowledge that there is harm being done, and choosing not to ignore it, choosing not to just hope that it goes away, but to recognize that we need to lean into it and face it and resist the harm while still holding on to the dignity and care for everyone involved. It's not turning people into others. It's not turning people into the enemy who needs to be destroyed. It's looking at the stories and the powers and the structures that have made the harm possible. Yeah.
Thank you. And truly my last question, how did you feel when Renee Good was murdered? And how have you felt watching the ICE videos? In particular, I remember seeing the video of the ICE agents pulling the woman who identified as autistic out of her car. And I just began to cry because I was so deeply grieved by what I was seeing. What are the emotions you've been feeling? You live here. This is your community. What have you been experiencing?
When Renee Good was murdered, there was a collective sense of fear and shock. But a shock that was still rooted in, I think most people who have been doing this expected this to happen at some point. We knew that if we resisted, the pushback was going to get fiercer. And even before that, federal agents' actions here were already more aggressive and violent than they've been other places, and more en masse, that I think many of us expected it to happen. And still, fear and shock, and a collective awareness that was going to be a turning point. That, or at least a hope that was a turning point, that would capture people's attention in a way it hadn't before. So, yeah, a mix of things.
I promise this is my last question. I've lied to you 5 times. I feel like you just said a turning point. I also feel like this is a turning point. I'm also aware of the 1960s with the killing of King and JFK and mass protest movements around civil rights. Could you say more about what kind of turning point this is for us? Is it new? Is it a repetition of what we had before? What's happening?
In spaces where we talk about and teach nonviolent social change, one of the principles we come back to is that the work of social change goes in cycles. And those cycles frequently include catalyzing moments, turning points, these big flashes that catch people's attention. Often there are many of them, and they come and they go. Our society and our culture do not move in a linear line where we just hope that we keep getting better and keep getting better. We make progress, there's pushback. We make progress, there's pushback. But it's moments like this that capture the nation's attention, that help people realize, oh, this is a really big deal. This is different than I thought it was. There are moments when that movement for justice, that movement for liberation, that movement for a better future that cares for everybody has a chance to shift forward. And we are at that moment. The big question is, how will the country respond? And what comes next?
Thank you so much for your time here on this important day. I'm so grateful for your leadership and respect you immensely.